This is the story of Dalinda and James, a couple who had been inseparable since they were in school, starting from the 14th grade. They were the same age, shared countless memories, and loved spending time together. Despite 5 years of ups and downs, including family problems, they stayed strong, determined to be together. Dalinda's parents disapproved of James and tried everything to separate them, but nothing could break their bond. One evening, Dalinda invited James to her house for a family dinner. It was supposed to be a moment of acceptance, or so James hoped. However, things took a cruel turn. As the family gathered at the table, food was served to everyone except James. He sat there, humiliated, as Dalinda's parents blatantly ignored him. His hands trembled, his heart ached, and he fought back tears. Dalinda, noticing his pain, held his hand under the table and whispered, "I'm so sorry. No matter what they do, I'll always love you." That night, as James drove home, his mind spiraled into frustration and sadness. He kept replaying the humiliation he had just endured. Distracted, he didn't notice the truck speeding toward him until it was too late. The collision was catastrophic. His car burst into flames, and by the time help arrived, James had sustained severe burns all over his body, including his face. When James finally awoke in the hospital, he was unrecognizable, even to himself. The once vibrant young man was now scarred beyond recognition. Looking in the mirror, he felt as though he had become a monster. A painful thought gripped him. Dalinda's parents already despised him, how could she still love him now? Determined not to ruin her life, James made a heartbreaking decision. He begged his parents, "If Dalinda comes looking for me, tell her I've left the country. Tell her I'm sorry." His parents reluctantly agreed, though it tore them apart to see their son in such despair. Days passed, and Dalinda grew worried. She hadn't heard from James, and her calls went unanswered. Unable to bear it any longer, she went to his house, only to hear the devastating lie from James's parents: "He's gone. He moved abroad." Dalinda fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. What she didn't know was that James was watching from behind a curtain, tears streaming down his scarred face. He wanted to run to her, to hold her, but fear and shame held him back. His heart shattered as he watched her walk away in despair. Time passed, but Dalinda couldn't move on. James, on the other hand, stayed hidden in the shadows, always observing her from afar. He wore a hoodie and a mask to conceal his face. Though his heart ached for her, he convinced himself that keeping his distance was for the best. One day, as Dalinda sat alone in a park near her house, she noticed a mysterious figure watching her from afar. She had seen this man before, always keeping his distance, always disappearing before she could approach. This time, she decided she wouldn't let him vanish. She stood and walked toward him. James, sensing her approach, turned and began to walk away quickly. "Please don't run," Dalinda called out, her voice trembling with desperation. "I just want to talk. I won't hurt you." James stopped, but didn't turn around. "I'm in a hurry," he said in a low voice, trying to disguise it. "Just 2 minutes," Dalinda pleaded. "That's all I ask." After a long pause, James reluctantly agreed. They went to a nearby cafe and sat down. James kept his head low, speaking in short, quiet answers: "Yes, no, I don't know," anything to avoid revealing himself. But Dalinda sensed something was off. There was something hauntingly familiar about him. As their conversation continued, Dalinda noticed the scars on his face. "Did you have an accident?" she asked gently. "Is that why you're so sad?" James looked away, his hands trembling. Dalinda tried to comfort him. "We all have our problems," she said softly. "Even me. I lost someone I love. My boyfriend left me without a word. I know my parents were cruel to him, but I loved him. I still do. I would have done anything to stay with him, no matter what my parents said." James's heart pounded in his chest. Unable to hold back any longer, he asked, "Would you still love him if he looked like me? With scars like these?" Dalinda didn't hesitate. Yes, she said firmly. I didn't love him for his face. I loved him for his heart. Hearing those words, James felt a rush of emotions he couldn't contain. He instinctively ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit Dalinda knew all too well. Her eyes widened in recognition. James. Is it you? James froze. Tears welled up in his eyes as he slowly nodded. I'm sorry, Dalinda, he whispered. I didn't want you to see me like this. I thought you wouldn't love me anymore. Your parents already hated me, and now I look like this. I asked my mom to tell you I left because I thought it would be easier for you. Dalinda's eyes filled with tears as she reached across the table and took his hand. You're still the James the first love, she said softly. Nothing has changed. I don't care about your scars. I care about you. Overwhelmed by her words, James broke down. They embraced, tears flowing freely, their love stronger than ever before. In that moment, they knew that no obstacle, either scars nor disapproving parents, could keep them apart. In time, Dalinda's parents came to accept James, seeing the depth of their love. The couple married and, eventually, started a family, proving that true love can endure even the harshest trials.